Today I will be giving a quick lesson on character traits. Character traits are what make a character who they are. They help further the development of a character in a story. They are what brings a more realistic look to a real life person in a story, and it makes it easier for us to relate to the characters. So what exactly is a character trait? A character trait is the personality and or qualities that make a person who they are. Now, moving on into our we section of this lesson, as a class, we would take a post-it off of this, and we make a little chart like this one here. On the top, we would write character traits, and down the middle, we would split it into positive and negative character traits, because a character will and or may have both. Positive are the good character traits, so they're the good qualities and personality that this character may have, and the negative are more of the unwanted or bad or character traits that people just don't like. And so, as a class, we would discuss what a positive characteristic trait looks like and what a negative characteristic trait looks like. And then, from there, we would come up with a handful of positives. So those could be like creative, loyal, organized, lovable, caring. And then we would also come up with a handful of negative for the negative side. And those could look like messy, bossy, lazy, unorganized, different things like that make the character who they are. And this is important because, like I said earlier, this is what makes the characters more realistic to us. Because as everyday people in the real world, we all have those character traits. We all have traits that make us who we are. It makes us interesting as people. And we want that for our characters in our stories. We want a character that we can relate to. And as long as these characters have these traits, it is something that we may engage with more. It helps us connect to the character. And that's why these are important. And we would discuss that as a class on why is it important for these character traits to be in a character. What do we find relatable about these character traits? How do these shape a person as they are? How does it help further the story development and the storyline as we start seeing our characters make relationships, both maybe positive and negative? We start seeing those characters build together. We start seeing those characters interact more. We start seeing a bond that these characters have because they have things maybe in common or the same interest. And these character traits are all kind of where that starts. And after we have them all written out on the board, I would leave that up. I would leave that for students to see. And I would not take that down. It would stay the whole time that we cover the topic and the unit. And then as a 2 activity, I would split the class down the middle. And then from there, I would split the class into pairs or let them pick their partners. I would give each group a packet that has both positive and negative on one sheet that they will use for one activity. Negative characteristic traits for them to look at, and a list of positive characteristic traits for them to look at as well. Now coming back to this sheet, with the class being split down the middle and then into pairs, I would have one side look for the positive traits on this sheet and the other side look for the negative on this sheet. I would have them highlight each of the positive or negative, whichever ones that they were assigned. I would give them probably 3-4 minutes to do that. And then after that time is up, I would then have them in their pairs have a group of students that were assigned negative, group with a pair of students that were assigned positive. I would have them talk with each other, have about 2 minutes where one side will explain why they highlighted what they highlighted for whether it was negative or positive and why. And then when their time is up, I would give the other side the same amount of time, so 2 minutes, to then explain why they highlighted what they highlighted and why they see it as positive and or negative. And in the end, we would come back together as a group. We would then discuss which ones were positive and which ones were negative, and why it's important to identify positive and negative, because there is a difference. Positive are good traits, negative are bad, or unwanted, or ones that people find not as good as the positive traits. And then as a U activity and or a closure before the students leave class, so I understand so that I can see if they understood what I was teaching today, and if I need to go back, I would hand out a sticky note to each student individually and ask them to get out a marker and or pass out markers to each student. And I would ask them to write down 3 characteristic traits that they have on the sticky note. And then I'd have a second little poster like this one that says our characteristic traits in the middle, hung up next to it. And I'd have the students, as they finished, bring that sticky note up to the front, and then I would have them put it onto this little poster so that we could kind of see what characteristics that we all have. And I would not have the students put their names on it. I would just have them do it anonymously. And then if we have time, we would come back together as a whole and we would discuss some of these traits that are on these sticky notes, and if we do not have time, we may come back to it for the next class period to revisit this subject or little topic within this lesson, and then move on from there.